The U-Haul truck pulled away from 247 Maple Street as the October rain began to fall harder, turning the autumn leaves into a slippery carpet across the sidewalk. Sarah Chen stood on the porch of her new home, watching her 6-year-old daughter Emma press her face against the living room window, her breath fogging the old glass. "Mommy, why is this house so big and empty?" Emma called out, her voice echoing through the bare rooms. Sarah forced a smile as she carried another box inside. The Victorian house towered above them with its 3 stories, wraparound porch, and ornate woodwork that had seen better days. At $800 a month, it was the only place in Salem she could afford after the divorce settlement barely covered their basic needs. "It's going to be perfect once we make it our home," Sarah said, setting the box marked Emma's room on the hardwood floor. The realtor had mentioned the house had been empty for 14 months, a detail that should have concerned her more than it did. Emma's small footsteps echoed as she ran through the empty rooms, her voice calling out, "Hello, house! We're going to live here now." Her words bounced off the high ceilings and seemed to hang in the air. That first night, Sarah set up Emma's bed in the smallest bedroom upstairs, a cozy space with 2 windows overlooking the backyard. The moving boxes were stacked everywhere, making the house feel even more foreign and overwhelming. "I don't like how dark it gets here," Emma whispered as Sarah tucked her in. Outside, the streetlights cast long shadows through the bare trees, and the wind made the old house creak and groan. "It's just different from our apartment, sweetheart. Old houses make sounds because they're settling. It's like the house is getting comfortable for the night, just like you are." Emma nodded, but Sarah could see the uncertainty in her daughter's dark eyes. After the divorce, Emma had become more anxious, more sensitive to changes. Moving to Salem was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to build something stable for both of them. At 11:43 p.m., Sarah was unpacking dishes in the kitchen when she heard it, a soft sound coming from the front of the house. She paused, listening. It sounded like someone speaking very quietly, almost like a conversation happening just outside the front door. Sarah grabbed her phone's flashlight and walked carefully to the front door, her bare feet silent on the cold hardwood. She peered through the peephole, but the porch was empty. The street was quiet except for the occasional car passing under the streetlights. "Just the neighbors," she whispered to herself, but when she checked the time on her phone, it was nearly midnight. Who would be talking outside at this hour? She double-checked the locks, something she'd been obsessive about since living alone with Emma, and headed upstairs. As she passed Emma's room, she could hear her daughter's soft, steady breathing. At least one of them would sleep well tonight. "Mommy, did you hear the lady talking last night?" Sarah nearly dropped her coffee mug. Emma sat at the kitchen table in her Hawthorne elementary uniform, eating cereal and swinging her legs. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows, making everything seem normal and safe. "What lady, sweetheart?" "The one who was talking outside." She sounded sad. "I wanted to go help her, but you always say never open the door at night." Sarah's heart began to race. "You heard someone talking outside?" Emma nodded seriously. "She was asking for someone named Catherine. She kept saying, 'Catherine, where are you?' over and over. It made me feel sad for her." The spoon in Sarah's hand trembled slightly. "Emma, you must have been dreaming. There wasn't anyone outside." "But I was awake, Mommy. I got up to get water, and I heard her through my window. She was standing right by our front door." After dropping Emma off at school, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She decided to visit Salem's Historical Society, housed in a beautiful brick building downtown. The October air was crisp, and Salem was already decorated for Halloween season, something that now felt more ominous than festive. Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, the head librarian, was a woman in her 70s with silver hair and the kind of eyes that seemed to have seen everything. When Sarah mentioned her address, Mrs. Patterson's expression grew troubled. "Oh dear, the Henley house. I was wondering when someone would move in there again." "What do you mean?" Mrs. Patterson led Sarah to a quiet corner table and pulled out a thick folder. That house has quite a history. It was built in 1887 by James Henley, a successful merchant. He built it for his wife Margaret and their 7-year-old daughter, Catherine. Sarah's hands grew cold as she opened the folder and saw a sepia photograph of a beautiful woman with dark hair standing next to a young girl who looked remarkably similar to Emma. What happened to them? Tragedy struck in November 1892. There was a fire, started in the kitchen late at night. James and Margaret escaped, but Catherine. Mrs. Patterson's voice grew soft. She was trapped in her bedroom on the second floor. They found her the next morning. Sarah felt sick. And Margaret. She never recovered. Neighbors reported that she would stand at the front door every night, calling for Catherine. She believed her daughter was still alive, still trying to come home. Margaret died 2 years later. Some say of a broken heart, others say she simply wasted away from grief. The photograph showed Margaret's eyes, and Sarah could see the deep sadness even in the old image. Has anyone else reported strange things in that house? Mrs. Patterson nodded grimly. Every family who's lived there has left within 6 months. They report the same things, whispers at night, the sound of a child running through the halls, and… She paused. Muddy footprints appearing inside the house. That night, Sarah lay in bed wide awake, listening to every sound. At exactly 11:43 p.m., she heard it clearly, a woman's voice, soft but desperate, coming from just outside the front door. Catherine! Catherine, please come home. Mommy's waiting for you. The voice was filled with such heartbreak that Sarah found herself crying. She tiptoed to Emma's room and found her daughter sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. She's so sad, Mommy. The lady misses her little girl so much. Sarah woke to Emma's urgent whispers at 6:47 a.m. Mommy, wake up. You have to see this. Still groggy, Sarah followed Emma downstairs, and her heart nearly stopped. There, on the polished hardwood floor near the front door, were small muddy footprints. They weren't adult-sized, they were the size of a child's foot, maybe a 7-year-old's, and they led from the front door to the bottom of the staircase. Emma, did you go outside last night? No, Mommy. I promise. I stayed in bed after I heard the sad lady. Sarah knelt down and examined the footprints more closely. The mud was still damp, and the prints were clear, small shoes, possibly old-fashioned based on the narrow shape. But every door and window in the house was still locked from the inside. Stay right here, Emma. Don't move. Sarah grabbed a kitchen knife and searched every room, every closet, every corner of the house. Nothing. No signs of forced entry, no broken windows, no unlocked doors. The footprints seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. After dropping Emma at school, Sarah called a locksmith and a security company. She needed answers, and she needed to protect her daughter. Marcus Williams, the locksmith, arrived within an hour. He was a kind man in his 50s who had been working in Salem for decades. When Sarah showed him the photographs she'd taken of the footprints, his expression grew serious. Mrs. Chin, I've worked on a lot of houses in Salem, and I've heard stories about this place. The last family who lived here, the Johnsons, they called me out here 3 times to change the locks. They swore someone was getting in at night. What happened to them? They left in the middle of the night, packed up everything they could carry and moved to Boston. Mrs. Johnson told me they found footprints too, and that their 5-year-old daughter claimed she was talking to another little girl who lived in the house. Sarah felt her blood turn to ice. A little girl? That's what she said. The daughter kept insisting that the little girl was lonely and wanted to play, but that she was different from other children. Marcus finished installing heavy-duty deadbolts and a security system with cameras. Mrs. Chin, I don't usually give advice about things like this, but have you considered that maybe someone or something is trying to tell you something? That evening, Sarah set up her laptop to record the front hallway. She also put a motion sensor camera outside the front door. Whatever was happening, she was going to document it. At 11:43 p.m., the whispering began again, but this time it was more intense, more desperate. "Catherine, where are you? Please come home, baby. Mommy needs you." Sarah checked her laptop screen. The hallway was empty, but she could clearly hear the voice. On the outdoor camera, she saw something that made her gasp. A translucent figure of a woman standing at the front door, her hand pressed against the glass, her mouth moving in desperate whispers. The figure looked exactly like Margaret Henley from the photograph. The next morning, Sarah could barely function. She'd watched the footage over and over, the ghostly figure of Margaret Henley standing at her door, calling for her dead daughter. When she showed Emma the clearer photo of Margaret from the Historical Society, Emma's reaction confirmed her worst fears. "That's the sad lady. She's been trying to tell me something important." "Emma, when exactly have you seen her?" Emma sat cross-legged on her bed, hugging her stuffed rabbit. "She comes to my window sometimes. She doesn't talk to me, she just looks very sad and points toward the stairs." Sarah felt her world spinning. "How long has this been happening?" "Since our first night here. I didn't want to tell you because you've been so worried about money and Daddy not living with us anymore." Sarah pulled Emma into her arms, feeling like she was failing as a mother. How had she missed this? How had she not realized her daughter was being visited by a ghost? "Sweetheart, I need you to tell me everything. What exactly does she want?" Emma's voice was small and serious. "She's looking for Catherine. She thinks Catherine is lost, but I think Catherine is scared to come home." "What do you mean?" "Sometimes I hear a little girl crying. It sounds like it's coming from inside the walls." Sarah called in sick to work and spent the day researching. She found more records at the Historical Society, including a detailed account of the fire from the Salem Evening News, November 15, 1892. The article revealed devastating details. Catherine Henley had been trapped in her bedroom when the fire started. Her body was found near the window, suggesting she had been trying to escape. But what haunted Sarah most was the final paragraph. Young Catherine's final resting place remains unknown, as her body was never recovered from the scene. The intense heat of the fire may have consumed all remains, leaving the grieving parents with no closure. That evening, Sarah made a decision that terrified her. She was going to try to communicate with Margaret Henley directly. She needed to understand what the spirit wanted and why Emma was involved. She set up in the living room with a digital recorder, candles, and a notebook. Emma sat beside her, surprisingly calm for a 6-year-old about to attempt contact with the dead. "We're here to help," Sarah said aloud to the empty room. "Margaret, if you can hear us, please tell us what you need." At exactly 11:43 p.m., the temperature in the room dropped noticeably. The candles flickered, and then they heard it, Margaret's voice, clearer than ever before. "She's still here. Catherine is still here. Trapped. Can't find her way home." Emma squeezed Sarah's hand. "Mommy, I think Catherine is hiding in the house somewhere. She's afraid of the fire that happened long ago." The recorder captured every word, and Sarah realized that Emma wasn't just sensitive to the supernatural. She was somehow connected to Catherine Henley, two little girls separated by over a century but united by fear and loneliness. Detective Ray Morrison arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, recommended by their neighbor Mrs. Goldstein. He was a tall, lean man with graying hair and kind eyes who had worked in Salem for 15 years. Sarah showed him the recordings, the photographs, and the video footage. "Mrs. Chin, I've seen a lot of strange things in this town, but I always look for logical explanations first," he said. "However, I'm also not one to dismiss the unexplained entirely. Salem has taught me that." "Do you think we're in danger?" "I don't believe so. If this spirit meant harm, you would have experienced something threatening by now. This sounds like a mother who can't rest because she can't find her child." Detective Morrison examined the house thoroughly. In the basement, he found something remarkable, a small door hidden behind an old cabinet that had been painted over multiple times. This might be a root cellar or storage space, he said, pulling the cabinet away from the wall. A lot of these old houses have hidden compartments. The door was barely 3 feet high and painted the same color as the wall. When Detective Morrison managed to pry it open, they found a narrow crawl space that led under the stairs. "I'm going to check this out," he said, pulling out his flashlight. "Be careful," Sarah whispered, holding Emma close. 5 minutes later, Detective Morrison emerged, his face pale. "Sarah, I need you to call the medical examiner. And Emma, sweetheart, why don't you go play upstairs for a while?" "What did you find?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Human remains. Small ones. They look very old." Sarah's heart pounded as she realized what this meant. "Catherine! It's possible." The fire department report from 1892 states they couldn't find her body. If she tried to hide in this crawl space. The medical examiner, Dr. Patricia Winters, arrived within an hour. She was a woman in her 40s with short red hair and a gentle manner. After examining the remains, she confirmed what they all suspected. "These are the bones of a child, approximately 7 years old. Based on the clothing fragments and the location, I'd estimate they've been here for over a century." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. "She's been here all this time. Margaret has been looking for her daughter for over 130 years, and Catherine has been right here, hiding in the house." That night, Sarah explained to Emma what they had found. Emma's response was both heartbreaking and wise beyond her years. "She was scared, Mommy. Catherine was scared of the fire, so she hid in the little room. But she got stuck and couldn't get out. Now she's scared to leave because she thinks the fire is still happening." "What do you think we should do?" Emma thought for a moment. "I think we need to help her understand that the fire is over and her mommy is waiting for her. They need to be together." The next evening, Sarah made arrangements for Catherine's remains to be properly buried. The Salem City Council expedited the process, and Father Michael O'Brien from St. Mary's Catholic Church agreed to perform a memorial service. But first, Sarah wanted to try something that might seem crazy to most people. She wanted to help Margaret and Catherine find each other. Dr. Amanda Foster, a paranormal researcher from Boston University, arrived that afternoon. She was a woman in her 30s with dark hair and an open, scientific mind. She had studied cases like this for over a decade. "What you're describing is not uncommon," Dr. Foster explained. "Sometimes spirits become trapped in a cycle of grief or fear. The mother can't move on because she can't find her child, and the child can't move on because she's still afraid. How do we help them? We create a safe space for them to communicate. Emma seems to be a natural medium. Children often are. She can serve as a bridge between them." That evening, they arranged the living room with candles and flowers. Emma sat in the middle, holding her stuffed rabbit, looking small but determined. "Catherine," Emma called out softly. "It's okay to come out. The fire is gone. Your mommy is here, and she loves you very much." The room grew cold, and Sarah could see her breath. Then, in the corner of the room, a faint outline appeared, a small figure in a white nightgown. "Catherine, baby, is that you?" Margaret's voice filled the room, and another figure appeared near the front door, a woman in a long dress, her arms outstretched. Emma stood up and walked to the center of the room. "Catherine, your mommy has been looking for you for so long. She's not angry. She just wants to hug you." The small figure moved slowly toward the woman. As they got closer, both spirits became more visible, more solid-looking. "I'm sorry, Mommy." Catherine's voice was barely a whisper. "I was scared. I hid when the fire started, but I couldn't get out." "Oh, my precious baby." Margaret's voice was filled with love and relief. "I've been waiting for you." It's time to come home now. The two figures embraced, and a warm light filled the room. Emma was crying, and so was Sarah. They're happy now, Emma whispered. They're together. The light grew brighter, and then, gradually, both figures faded away. The room returned to normal temperature, and a sense of peace settled over the house. 2 weeks later, Sarah stood in the same living room, but it felt completely different. The oppressive atmosphere was gone, replaced by a warmth that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Emma was at the kitchen table doing homework, humming softly, something she hadn't done since before the divorce. The memorial service for Catherine Henley had been beautiful. Half the town had attended, including several families who had lived in the house over the years. Many shared their own experiences with the whispers and footprints, and everyone agreed that the house felt different now. Detective Morrison stopped by to check on them. "How are you both doing?" "Better than we've been in a long time," Sarah admitted. "It's strange, but helping Margaret and Catherine find each other, it helped me realize that Emma and I are going to be okay too." "You're staying in the house?" Sarah nodded. "It's our home now. Really our home." Emma looked up from her homework. "Detective Morrison, did you know that Catherine visits sometimes? Not scary visits. Happy visits. She plays with me sometimes, and she's not sad anymore." Detective Morrison smiled. "That's wonderful, Emma. I'm glad she's found peace." That evening, as Sarah tucked Emma into bed, her daughter surprised her with a question. "Mommy, do you think Daddy misses us like Margaret missed Catherine?" Sarah considered her answer carefully. "I think he misses us, sweetheart, but not in the same way. Margaret and Catherine were separated by something terrible. Daddy chose to leave because he thought it would be better for everyone. That's different. But we found each other again, just like Margaret and Catherine did." Sarah smiled, realizing her daughter was right. "Yes, we did. And we're going to take care of each other, just like they're taking care of each other now." As Sarah turned off the light, she heard Emma whisper, "Good night, Catherine. Thank you for teaching me that families can find each other again." The house settled around them with gentle creaks and sighs, and for the first time in months, Sarah felt truly at peace. Outside, the autumn wind rustled through the trees, but inside 247 Maple Street, two families had finally found their way home.